The world we live in faces large challenges that are existential for humanity, in need of solutions. In order to develop these solutions, we need radical interdependence, entrepreneurship, leadership, and passion. Bringing leaders together in an action-oriented community is essential. B for Good Leaders is building a global cooperative community in which entrepreneurship works together. Every month, we design a leadership dialogue in which you can learn and interact with influential leaders. Welcome to this month's edition of the B for Good Dialogue.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 8th Leaders Dialogue. My name is Leen Zevenbergen and I'm co-founder of B for Good Leaders. I'm here today with my co-host Isabelle Gros-Maître. She's a founder and a CEO of Goodness & Co. Welcome, Isabelle.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to do the dialogue with you. And today is a very special day at B for Good Leaders because we are here in a winter gathering. It's not winter yet, but we are at a winter gathering at Nyenrode University, and we have spent the whole day here with an audience, with a group of people, talking about how to create a regenerative economy together. Very inspiring day. Yay! And that is in the upcoming hour and a half, we will have the opportunity to interact with the leaders that are here, stewards mainly, to discuss and to exchange how we have built and we want to build this regenerative economy. In order to inspire us, we have 7 people that will be attending with us here on the stage. Veronique Mistelli from Mistelli, director of the Mistelli Company. Eric Ezekieli, co-founder of Nativa from Milan. Sean Russell, founder of Scandinaviski, and do I pronounce that right? Scandinaviski, who is also a steward. Lisette Schuitemakers, author and an impact investor. Frida Gormley, who is the owner of the house and founder of the House of Hackney. We have Christoph Grobbel, the CEO of South Pole, and Jessica Peters-Hondeling, who is co-founder of the ESG Innovation Institute. And we have you in the audience, but not only you as normally, but we also have here a whole audience who will join us in the discussion with questions and remarks. So now, how and why do we do this Leaders Dialogue? The Leaders Dialogue is about changing an economy. And the economy around us is changing very rapidly and fundamentally. And we need a different approach. Some people call that a systemic change. And for that, we need courageous leaders. And we believe that entrepreneurs are the key change makers to make a new economy happen. So the goal of Be for Good Leaders is to bring these leaders together and to talk about the core challenges that we have. And we do that every 2 months. So building a closely knit group of committed business leaders in a space that we call the Leaders Dialogue.
Be for Good Leaders Declaration. As Be for Good Leaders, we commit to reframe the meaning of leadership by 1. Embracing radical interdependence, the fundamental principle governing life on Earth, as the golden rule for decision-making, leading to a regenerative impact. 2. Considering at least the next generation of humans in every business decision. 3. Measuring what matters to integrate systemic value creation into our definition of profit. 4. Challenging extractive economic models and taking a stand for the common good. 5. Mobilizing finance as a catalyst to transform the business perspective from short-termism to long-term shared value creation. We commit to guiding our companies and organizations to create a purpose-driven model that creates value for all. Through this joint leadership statement, we lay the foundation for collective actions and alliances, clearing the path for a new regenerative economy.
Isabelle, as my co-host here today, is a great sustainability leader, founder of Goodness & Co., and also a former catalyst at Danone. Danone, as you all know, is a big company that is now working hard to make all their elements a B Corp. And you also led the strategic transformation towards One Planet, One Health. So many things. And then you are a member of the, it's a long list that I have here, Isabel, for the 100 Davos Women, the global community of impact-driven women leaders. It's a very big pleasure, Isabel, to have you here.
Thank you so much, Lee. So, as you just mentioned, is this mic working? Yeah. Yes? Wonderful. So we had an amazing day all together, and actually I believe that there will be no transformation without courageous leaders. And here we are together. What is courage about? It's about the fortitude of heart, the strength of heart. And this is what matters. So we'll have a chance to hear a few of our stewards that will share with you, that will be our eyes and ears of what we have heard and worked together today. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Marcello, if you can join us, to be able to share what you have today. Really, I'm not sure it's working properly, right?
No, it's not working. It's kind of coming and going. But maybe someone can help us to fix it.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you.
I'm
going to ask you.
I wasn't going to come on the stage, so thank you for having me. Please. Yeah. Well, first of all, Len and I, we knew we wanted to be together with you, to see you, touch you, feel you, because, you can't just meet once a year. This is an ongoing thing. So our kind of hope is to recreate continuously, also online and through these smaller meetings, community coming together, being together again. So this is one takeaway. It's just really beautiful to be together.
Do. That's what I heard today at lunch. Remember that? It's not just about doing, it's about being together. Do.
Yeah.
Thank you for the mic.
Second thing, I'm really happy that we are here at Nijrode. I mentioned earlier, I've been here the first time 30 years ago. It was one of my first meetings in the Netherlands. Having an Institute of Learning and a business school is so important. All the alumni, if we can only get all the universities in the world to really start practicing and teaching and talking about a new way of doing business, we will make a big difference. So it's great to be here. Third thing, everyone is amazing here, but some of the younger leaders are really super amazing. So I'm really happy, and I think Lynn and I have said it, maybe when we open the summit in Amsterdam, we just have 18 years old. Tell us, share with us where we should be going, and of course to do it together clearly. But the younger people are very important. So
they give us a lot of hope, and today we've seen them very active. Thank you so much, Marcello, for sharing those few words with us. Thank you. So now I invite the stewards to share, to come with us on stage. So I'm going to ask Véronique Mistelli from the Mistelli Creative Agency. Please join us. Eric Ezzechielli, there are a lot of us Italian here, the co-founder of Nativa. Sean Russell, not only the founder of the Be Beauty Coalition, but also the founder of Scandinavisk. And please, Lisette, you're already there. Lisette Schuttmaker, thank you for joining us. Thank you. So, as you understood, the four of them are stewards of our movement, but they have been also very active today in our session. So please, I'm going to ask first the ladies, if it's okay with you. Lisette, could you please share with us, beyond the do, because this is from you, what your key insight has been for the day?
Well, one of the things that I take away is a plea for some silence. Because when we are silent, we start to draw from a different source. I start to draw from a different source than when I just keep speaking. So I'm just going to do that now. Because I really don't know what I'm going to say. So this is very edgy. I see some of the women smiling, thank you. And I have been speaking today with many women, also because of what I said during on Thich Nhat Hanh. There's a very powerful call to action. Don't just sit there, do something. But he reversed it and said, don't just do something, sit there. So in our session about how to give further shape and form to the cooperative, there was a lot of calling for the heart, siding with the heart, to have a chair for young people, for animals, for nature, or the rest of nature, I would say, actually, and for silence. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Veronique?
Yes, I had a very interesting day. And actually, I think it started very well with the professor here from Nijrode, Annemiek Robeek, who pointed out that all the changements we have to make is with vision and strategy and collaboration and big and small businesses, collaboration, young people. And I really liked her approach. And I think I wasn't aware that Nijrode was this far in thinking. So it also gives me a very optimistic view on how young people are educated right now. And yeah, that was my biggest takeaway, actually. Thank you.
So before we go forward to Eric, I would direct a question a little bit. You've seen the declaration. Eh? It's a nice document. You worked on it yourself from Nativa. So how do you think we should take that forward?
Yeah, the declaration is very powerful, and it was co-created 2 years ago in Rome. And when you read it, you are almost overwhelmed by it. And I connect to something that made me reflect a lot today. Merit, the CEO of Albert Heijn, she said we are always focusing on the big steps, the big leaps, the big things, and the breakthroughs. But what really makes the difference, the huge difference, are the small and the micro steps. And also in this community, we really have the potential to create a new culture. And the culture is just the sum up, is the adding, is the addition of many, many, many micro things. And so what we have been exploring this afternoon is how to turn the pillars of the declaration, the commitment of the declaration, into micro actions we can take. And you already mentioned one, maybe starting our meetings or board meetings with 3 minutes of silence. This will be incredibly disruptive. Can you imagine, each of you in your respective companies or in every corporation to start and focusing for 2-3 minutes is a long time of silence and focusing on our intentions. And for example, in those 3 minutes, thinking, how can I be a good ancestor? And you also propose a measurement. We also spoke about measure what matters. How do I know if I'm being a good ancestor? And there is a very, very simple metric and very, very powerful question. It's beyond any technology you can imagine, any AI, asking within my heart, am I proud of what I'm doing? So at the beginning of the day, am I proud of what I will be doing today? And at the end of the day, am I proud of what I've been doing today? And as Marcello said, at the end of the line, you will meet yourself, what you could have been. So will you be proud of what you have done in your life? And you build it with this micro action every single day. So
can I ask you one thing, Eric? Can I ask the audience that we do the sum meter on how proud are you today of your day? Super proud is this thumb up. Not so proud is this. Can you tell us how proud are you from your day today?
Pretty proud.
Super high. Quite impressed, actually, even though there are some differences. And this is a good transition for the next speaker, Sean. Sean is all about coalition.
Isabel, can I
Yes.
add something? Well, Annemiek Robeek this morning also spoke vehemently about leaving our ego at the door. Kind of hang up your coat and leave your ego there. And this pride, of course, is really the deep pride. And that's what you addressed, is can I look into the mirror and feel, yes, I have been a good ancestor. So, yeah, just the nuance there.
Thank you. So going back to Sean, so we are all here conscious because we are all very engaged, right? As Be4 Good leaders, and we're all doing good things, more or less, but in the good direction. I think that we are all in the right direction. But we are all conscious that we are not there at all at the speed and the scale that the world needs. So we need one another. And this is where really coalitions of actions really make sense. So can you tell us more about what you've heard today, Sean, about can we speed up the scale? How can we accelerate collective action? Because it's not so easy, right?
No, it's not so easy. As the chair of the B Corp Beauty Coalition, one of the co-founders of that movement, which is similar in age to Be4 Good Leaders, and I've been one of the lucky ones to be involved in both or more or less from foundation. At the centre, in terms of the B Corp Beauty Coalition, it is incredibly frustrating. It always feels tremendously slow. Collective action, working together with people that you don't know in organizations that you have nothing to do with. They may be competitors or they may be completely different. Specific to the coalition, I was working directly with competitors and continue to do so. Here, it is much, much more macro. It is even more broad and arguably even more challenging. But what I find reassuring in looking at both of those movements and seeing what's already been achieved in a relatively short space of time is firstly, there's a common mindset. That's the most important element. If you don't share the same mindset, almost nothing will happen. But if you have the mindset and you can create a framework around that mindset, which of course Eric has just confirmed the work and the words that were used in Rome and continue to be our North Star. And then you bring people together as frequently as you possibly can, so it becomes a part of their weekly life, their business life, not just an occasional Zoom call once every 6 months. It becomes embedded in your DNA as a leader, and it gives that movement even more chance to work. This is the third time I've physically got together with the Be4 Good Leaders movement in just over 18 months. And for me, that is such an important element of making sure this movement will be the success it so deserves to be.
Thank you.
By the way, for the people who are not in Rome, the declaration that you just saw was co-created, basically by a group of about 14 young people who ran around for 2 days. Well, ran around. They looked around and they listened very carefully, and they together made a declaration that was very emotional when they presented it to the audience. You can imagine there were 600 people in a very big room, and they came there and they actually said, "Can we also do a speech?" So they didn't, because we said, well, we have some time to do the declaration quickly, and so they said, we also prepared a speech. That speech was even more impressive, I think, and then they presented. So this is not something that very few people created. This is 600 people created this declaration together, which makes it, I think, even stronger. And before we continue, we have always space for questions from the audience, and Isabel can see that on her laptop.
No question yet. Please online, when you're online, don't hesitate. I have here, right here, your question, so don't hesitate.
Oh, we have a question over there. I go there, that is my task. Isabel stays here. So I give you the microphone.
Thank you. Yeah.
And maybe you can say your name first.
Yeah, I'm Catherine. I'm from Sanofi Consumer Healthcare. My question is actually for Sean. Just interested in the Beauty Coalition. And if you could share your experience about it and kind of what are the main outcomes of it so far.
Right, how long have you got? Firstly, you need, it's almost like giving birth to a child. Firstly, you need to find the right partner or partners, the ones that share the same mindset. And secondly, you need to kind of agree on how that child is going to grow up. We had a governance, operating procedures, and then we learned to walk. We found others to join us on the journey, and from 7 B Corps, we became 70 B Corps in less. It was very important that we built momentum and involvement from multiple different places all over the world, specific to our coalition. We are looking to change the beauty industry for good, to improve the sustainability standards of the beauty industry. That was our North Star, remains our North Star. And I think as a child, as you grow up, as you learn to walk, you also realize some of the expectations you had for the child at the beginning need to evolve as well. So we are now moving into a kind of second iteration of the Beauty Coalition starting in 2024. We will move towards a fee-based, expectation-based membership structure that will set specific criteria on all members, but also benefits to members, whereas before it was more volunteerism, pro bono, and that was good to get things started. But if you want to professionalize and if you really want to influence an industry to change, then you also need to rethink some of your initial criteria. So I see us now moving to a kind of more professional structure, involving more larger companies as well as the small speedboats, if you will. We've also set high-level goals. We've defined criteria that we believe the beauty industry needs to implement, and we will implement ourselves. We will track our progress. We will publish our outcomes. Things like net zero, no microplastics, biodynamic, biodegradable packaging, those kinds of things that we will set as our North Star, declare publicly, and then also track our performance so the rest of the industry can also hopefully learn from it. It's not a walled garden. It's an open, inclusive, open source network, if you like.
And how many people are currently in the coalition?
More than 70 Beauty B Corps from all continents.
Yeah.
Yes.
From all over the world.
From all over the world, yeah.
So
yeah, which makes it quite hard to coordinate.
And it would be replicable for other topics, right?
Very much so. And we have, in fact, there's a gentleman in accountancy who's I spoke to in Amsterdam who has, I think, used our governance. We've been approached by fashion companies, transport, because we have created a framework which is not exclusive to beauty. It's actually just any industry could potentially use, and we're more than happy to share it with any organization that's asking themselves the question. I know Eric and I have spoken in Amsterdam because you're doing something very similar in Italy, which we can also learn from. So, yeah, it's very much open source. Anyone is interested, we're happy to share.
Yeah, good. Any other question from the audience? Yeah, I run again with my microphone. Go ahead.
Thank you, Lane.
And your name?
Hi, I'm Jose Ignacio Morejon from Ecuador. It's a long way to come here, but it's always nice and nourishing and refreshing to hear what someone else already spoke about, and it's hope. My question to you guys is, we're creating a community, and it's a community built on trust. How do you see and understand this radical interdependence we have in our declaration? And how do you see this radical interdependence actually moving forward to a connected world in terms of, I see a lot of global north in the discussion. How do we connect it to the global south?
No, I give it.
I think, going back to mindset, mindset is not exclusive to the global north, ultimately. I think people world over realize there's a need for change. As long as you can connect those mindsets, whether you're coming from the north or south, you should be able to make magic happen.
We have a program developed that we started in Amsterdam during the summit, and we started to call it Global South program, Well, that was not a very good name. So it's now called the World Leaders Program. And we actively help entrepreneurs from regions like Latin America, like Africa, like Asia Pacific, who want to join entrepreneurs, but who cannot fully pay everything. So they travel, they have to pay something, because otherwise we think they're not a real entrepreneur and they don't think there is a value. So, and last summit we had about 150 people through that program who attended, and it is a challenge. So all of you, so if you know people you think who come from Latin America, from Africa, and who should join, please let us know, because then we bring them into the program. It's not so easy to make a program like that. We thought everybody would run to us and want to join, but that is not so easy. So we need all the help we can get to bring them here. But Lisette, you're also...
What am I going to say?
You don't know anymore.
I don't know yet, but I think as humans we're kind of we're a bossy species. We boss the rest of nature around, and within humans, the North is quite bossy, and within the North, men are quite bossy, and so there's a lot of work for us, for women, for people of other parts of the world. I spoke to you from Malaysia, which was wonderful to hear about how things are happening in Asia. But building a community, you spoke also about building a community. I wanted to address that because I've long been involved with Findhorn, which was one of the first eco-villages. And so the eco-village movement, the global eco-village network, is a huge network. It used to be that if you wanted to start an eco-village, you had to go to Scotland. Now, if you want to start an eco-village in Senegal, there's a training around the corner because there's thousands of them. And they have a wonderful model that maybe we can also learn from as a cooperative. But for the radical interdependence, I think that is a daily practice. It's just a daily practice of remembering that as this kind of postal code, I'm part of the universe even, you know. And in some outer corner, there's this solar system, and in some little corner, there is us, and we're doing the best we can and making a huge mess. And yeah, so just a remembering every day, that is my answer.
Do you think that maybe the game that you developed would help to answer his question?
Well, thank you. Yes, well, that's another story, and it's also what happened in Rome when we were very inspired with a few creative agencies in Amsterdam. During COVID time, we thought, how are we going to work together and use the creative minds to do something good for this world? And we said, well, we want to put our effort in diversity and inclusion. So we developed a game. It took us 3 years, happily not only in COVID time, but also a bit later. And we worked on that with 120 people because we thought it was very important to have real stories. We played this game this morning, and I would like to thank Lane and Marcello that we could play it, and I do have a little present. Let's Play Equal for Be for Good Leaders to play it with your team, because I really think it's very useful. And we should all try to think about this, because it will help boards, but also teams to kickstart a conversation about diversity and inclusion. So that was something actually we picked up from the summit, and we worked it out, and yeah.
And does it need dozens of people, or can we play it over a Christmas dinner?
Yes, you can play it over Christmas dinner. 4 to 8 people, and we played it this morning, and there were 20 people who played it, and I got a lot of enthusiastic reactions, so that's good.
Yeah, so this whole movement of leaders is about action. You all picked up actions of today. What would be your most impressive action that you would like to share, that inspires all of us, that you think, wow, that's what I'm going to do too? So what is maybe Eric, you're thinking?
Just want to segue a little bit about the coalitions, because...
is it action-oriented?
It is. It is.
Okay, good.
Because we said before that we have to focus on the micro things and create the culture and so on and so forth. But eventually, as you opened this morning, this will or could or should become like a political force. So creating a critical mass of people who have similar intentions, who share the mindset, who share the framework. And this is happening, for example, with the Beauty Coalition. And there is this other coalition, is written CO2 Coalition, and now it's gathering 90 businesses in Italy. Altogether, they are about 35,000 people, 20 billion revenues. All of them have accomplished a very disruptive action. They wrote decarbonization in their statutes, in their bylaws. So it becomes the mandate from shareholders to the management to decarbonize the company. And this is like a case study on a global scale. We have no idea of, or we are not knowledgeable of other similar initiatives. And action could be to spread this out on a global scale and having all the business on the planet, eventually making this compulsory. Governments making it compulsory for businesses to write in the bylaws that they have to decarbonize as well as producing profits, but make profit by decarbonizing themselves. So you start from a micro action, a company, and 2 companies, and 10 companies, and a global movement. And another action, once again, regarding becoming a political force, you know, that in 2016 in Italy, we introduced benefit corporations. Now there are more than 3,300. And the figures came out a few days ago. Collectively, if there was one single company, it would be the largest company in Italy, almost 200,000 people, almost 50 billion revenue. And given the rate of growth, this will become the largest, so to say, company in the country. So you can start with your own company, you create a seat. For example, going to your question, your original question, I deviated a little bit, but still it was about action. Really defining in the regulations of the company that there must be a seat in the board for someone who is under 25. This must be like mandatory for the company to operate. And someone today was commenting, sorry, I don't remember who, too much information today, that there are some big corporations that have already a board member, a board, entire board made of young people under 20, under 25, that consult with the normal board. So, you know, these are incredibly powerful actions because the limitation is being stuck in your mindset and paradigms as white, old males, and nothing really changes until this is the, let's say, the overall culture.
A lot about it is about building a more inclusive and collaborative governance. I believe that there is a huge difference, and the only thing that makes a difference between companies that succeed and the one that fails is this point. That's my conviction, is the one that are able to build a more collaborative and inclusive governance. And there is a question, actually, from the online, from Vinicius, that is asking, especially on the governance part, what would be the worst network governance scenarios that we should avoid? So I think it's a fair question also to ask. Who wants to answer this one?
Last weekend, pretty much, OpenAI went upside down. The company that created ChatGPT, the CEO resigned. A new CEO was appointed, a female, 34 years old, and then there was a new change of CEO, clash between the company and the board. To make a long story short, apparently the entire company is converging into Microsoft. And if I think about potential, maybe everything is going to be all right, but potential nightmare is such a huge company having this huge capacity, technological capacity, and pretty much nothing to limit it. So for me, a governance nightmare is someone or something taking over everything, corporations becoming larger and larger and larger without limits. And this is actually what's happening right now. And policymakers are not really intervening because, as we know, they are pretty heavily influenced by those larger and larger and larger corporations. But eventually there is nothing in nature which is large and dominating and centralized. So nature finds way to fragment things. So there is nothing in nature which is centralized apart from the sun. Everything else is distributed. So just a reflection. But
the worst kind of governance is the one that has a singular focus on profitability as the only or primary metric.
Thank you. Actually, in one of the group today, there was a recommendation that when we look at metric that matters, maybe that we should really encourage every one of us and every leaders around us to avoid and to ban every dashboard that only looks at economic performance. So just adding one more KPI, whether it's about the carbon footprint or the employees' well-being, whatever matters most to the leaders of the company or the activities of the company, but just add one more KPI to make sure that you don't look at only economic performance.
Really? Only one?
To start with,
can we not do more radical? Can we not be more radical? We want them all. We want a seat for the planet, a seat for the animals, a seat for the plants, a seat for the next generations. Yeah.
It's
Before we move on to our next theme, we always have two themes. I would like to check if there's online or in the audience anybody who wants to add something to this discussion, a smart remark. That is a difficult and dangerous remark from my side, but a remark or so. Go ahead. Your name also.
Hi, I'm Christophe Fauconnier from Innate Motion. The question on radical interdependence. I was sitting here and I miss Satish.
Yeah.
And I think radical interdependence is so much easier when we can radically love. And creating that space for compassion, broader compassion, then interdependence becomes so much easier. So I would say just read his book, Radical Love, that we can become more generous, more compassionate, and then interdependence becomes so much easier.
Thank
so,
you.
Satish, we miss you.
Thank you, Christophe.
By the way, Christophe Fauconnier is one of the founders, together with Brendel and two other friends, of the Regenerative Alliance. And the Regenerative Alliance and Be for Good Leaders have now signed an agreement that the whole network of the Regenerative Alliance is joining with all the beautiful products, Be for Good Leaders network. So that is love, isn't it? Yeah. Very good. Doing things together. Do you have anything more?
No.
No, nothing from the audience. Nothing maybe from you. Okay, so that makes us ending this first session. As I said, we have always two themes. Every Leaders Dialogue has two themes. The first theme was to see what we got out of the day, and before we come, sorry.
Thank you so much for the leaders and the stewards of this session. So thank you, Sean. Thank you, Lisette. Thank you, Veronique, and thank you, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I love it because every time we get together, it brings everyone a lot of hope. Not only because of actions, but because we know that no one can achieve that on its own. And sometimes the road is straight, but sometimes it's bumpy. And every time we get together, it gives us so much strength that we feel really great afterwards. So maybe I'm going to ask, before we go into the next panel, I'm going to ask a few leaders from our community to share their commitments after this day. So the first one would be Chris Marcus. I would love to hear your personal commitments. So where are you in the
Chris
room?
is here.
Yes.
So a commitment, and maybe you can also say who you are, Chris.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Chris Marquis. I teach at Cambridge University. As you can probably tell my voice, I'm not British. I'm actually American, moved over there a few years ago. a commitment. You know, one of the things I've really appreciated about this meeting is the focus on action and urgency. And I must admit, after moving to an 800-year institution, those are new ideas to me. So, so maybe I think if a commitment is to be more action-oriented in, so most of the work I do in this community is writing and communicating. And so, so certainly I've taken away a lot from here around regeneration and businesses that are really, you know, focused on that. And so I think that will be where I put my attention.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. So as Lane explained earlier, I'm very engaged into female entrepreneurs and female leadership. So thank you so much for the panel that we had today.
We go to Helle and we go to the woman who was here also on the panel and who finally was elected as the Female Sustainable Entrepreneur of the Year. So maybe what is your commitment? And maybe you can say your name again. So
Hi, my name is Ananda. Nice to meet you all. I think my commitment is to stay open and tell our story. And, you know, I started the company from an intrinsic motivation to work on a circular economy. And I think I want to share my story, but also my knowledge. So if anyone is interested to connect, to exchange knowledge, then that's something I want to give back to this new
And
way.
you're committed to the circular...
Yes, 100%.
And you know that the world needs role model. And the fact that you are sharing that it is possible gives us so much hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is the name of the company?
Reliving. Reliving. What if we could relive our planet, right?
Reliving.
Beautiful word.
So then that brings us to Helle, who is here, also one of the stewards. Helle?
Yes, hello everyone. Thanks for putting me on the spot, Isabel. I love this group. You know, every time we get together, I feel I'm less alone. I think that's probably the most important statement I can make today is I take away from these events the energy to fully live the radical human being that I am. And I would say that my commitment is to go away and to make fully sure that the day I meet the person that I could have been, I meet myself.
Bravo, Ella. And now we would love to hear you, Paul Kloppenborg, please.
Your commitment, Paul. and maybe you can say who you are and what you do.
My name is Paul Kloppenborg, and for the last 20 years I've been running private equity funds. We put $1 billion to work in originally scaling solar. Now we are very much investing dollars combined with decarbonization. It means to my LPs, I inform the CO2 reduction at our companies where I invest in that I need to scale to impact. I report to them, like 6 years ago we started with CO2. That is a commitment that I took up in myself and the fund. So my whole team investing in growth companies in clean energy currently. We look at decarbonization. Within decarbonization we look at methane. So CO2 out of the air is important. To get methane out of the air is 85x more important. You will hear on this on COP28. Maybe I may share my source of why I do this work. 20 years, exactly the same. You know, in '79 I arrived here. I'm a student from this university. We had so after Nijrode, I went to HEC and then to Delft, Technical University, and Leiden, philosophy. And for me, you know, having been able to travel through studies, I always ask myself, you know, what do we do here? The B for good leaders. What does good mean? Now, good for me means, so good has the same source as the word ethics, you know, ethics, the good act, and aesthetics, beauty, they both share the word ethos. This is the place where your inner self lives. So ethos is ethics. Aesthetics is the place where you self live. And now I come to the end of the story. Sorry for that. But the ethos that was planted in me by a philosopher here at Nijrode, Lut Stallard, the guys who have been at Nijrode, whether they are 50 or 90, they all know Lut Stallard because the gentleman philosopher here on Nijrode, he always focused us training in those 3 years. Everybody was drinking in the bar. We had to play sports to get clean again and then go to philosophy or statistics or whatever you had. But the gentleman learned us, our awareness, we can only spend it once. In the second, in the minute, in the day of life. We can only spend it once. So we have to orient our awareness on being. But not just being. The essence of being. And the more we enter the essence of being, the more we are at home, at the ethos, so that we can be beautiful people, aesthetics, or good people, ethics. And I hope in Be for Good Leaders that we find, so to say, the silence of heart, to meet the deeper self.
That's your commitment of the day.
That is how I live.
That's a big one.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, it is. You also have a good voice to explain that message. Because sometimes people have an ugly voice, but this was a very great voice. I'm not saying who has an ugly voice. You all have great voices, so don't worry about it. And that is, as I said
You're
earlier,
the only one that can always say this type of things, you know?
No, it's just a coincidence that things happen. We have 2 themes always. And the second theme of today is about innovation. So when we want to move forward, when we want to make an impact, we need innovation. You see many innovations, not only an innovation of the system, maybe also a technical innovation. And when we think about the track of the regenerative economy, building the regenerative economy, we have to explore how we can innovate for a sustainable future. You're in the middle of that, Paul, as well. And but before we dive into this topic, we quickly show a short video.
As we get wiser, as we get more mature, we'll be able to put aside the shorter-term worries and focus more on the long term. So coming back to the question, how far in the future should we look? The answer is, it depends on our sustainability index as a civilization. The wiser we are, the more mature we are, the more we look at the longer-term issues. So innovation is one of the answers. Innovation can be thought of as the way that a civilization increases its sustainability and the sustainability of everything it cares about.
Making electricity from human-powered steps is a concept that has been around for a while. Wood is one of the most sustainable and popular building materials. But its electroneutrality has meant that it has been relatively ignored for energy harvesting. These scientists found a way to modify it with silicon and nanocrystals, relatively environmentally friendly procedures, making it triboelectric.
It's super interesting times. And, everybody we talk to wants to talk about sustainability. They've all made pledges and commitments. They all have plans for the future, and some of them don't know how to get where they're going. But they all absolutely understand that the world is changing, that the world is warming up, that global warming is real, and that we all have a role to play. And so when they talk to Honeywell, they recognize us as a leader. They recognize us as a company with vast technologies and really interesting solutions, but they don't necessarily know what to ask for. And so that's kind of where we typically get started.
Many of the problems facing us today have little to do with technology. We think of 1 billion people who have no electricity today, or the 1 billion people who lack adequate nutrition, or the 1 billion people who have too much nutrition. Those problems require primarily political and social innovation.
Making affordable fashion sustainable is the goal of this global e-commerce brand. Everything is handmade to order in Spain and Portugal. Most importantly, they only make what is ordered, totally reducing unsold production waste. For every item ordered, they encourage you to resell something you no longer want.
And about 3 years ago, after working with hundreds of startups and big companies, I made a discovery. It's not about money. It's not about who you know. It's not even about being in the right place at the right time. It is about discomfort. It's about embracing, not just accepting discomfort, even in actual emergency, to innovate. It's on the other side of that uneasiness, that pain, that anxiousness, even embarrassment, that breakthrough innovation is waiting.
Similarly, Invest has created a set of modeling tools to evaluate the impact of investments in natural infrastructure in cities. The software models the links between nature and the well-being of populations, demonstrating the way investors can become allies to nature.
They tell you that once you have a great new business idea, the very next thing you need to do is write a comprehensive business plan. A 30-page document complete with 5-year financial projections. Then, you raise investment from friends and family or outside investors. You build your product. And finally, when all is said and done, customers will run at you with open arms, all according to your plan. There's people laughing about this in the audience because I think they understand Mike Tyson's famous quote, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face."
In the business world, corporate chieftains will sometimes exhort their R&D staffs to only work on the projects that will succeed and not on the other projects. But that's like telling bettors at a racetrack, only bet on the horses that will win. It's an appealing strategy, but it's much easier said than done. So innovation is not only messy and inefficient, it's unpredictable.
So we have now in our panel 3 people who are going to share with us innovation and the need for innovation building a regenerative economy. On the right hand of me, we have Christoph Grobel, who is the CEO of South Pole. Then I go to Frida Gormley, who is the founder and the co-owner of the House of Hackney. Hackney is a neighborhood in London, as all of you maybe know, some of you maybe know. And Jessica Peters, who is the co-founder of the ESG Innovation Institute and also a professor, a teacher, a what?
No, I will tell you all about
Oh, later we talk about that later. But you are the chair of the Amsterdam Economic Board?
From January.
From January on, so I'm right there. So you're here, and again, before we start, the people in the audience, but also the people here, when you have a question, don't hesitate to jump into the discussion.
Thank you, Lane. So I guess that we are all here because we believe in business as a force for good. But the reality is that we are all conscious that cities are playing a critical role. And for the last decade, I've been looking at C40 Cities Network. I've always been very inspired by what Amsterdam is doing, being at the forefront of those cities, willing really to set policies and actions for the citizens to thrive. So I'm very curious about how do you make it happen in Amsterdam, even though I understand very well that the role will be from January on. Exactly. You probably have an opinion about how the city is moving forward.
Yes. And I think to answer your question, this transition phase is quite important to me as a person. Like, we are here today as Be for Good leaders. So it's about your leadership. And you were telling about a program you're building, also for people and entrepreneurs in Africa and other places. And I think we should also do it the other way around, because there's so much wisdom at those places. So last Saturday, I just returned from a wilderness leadership trail in South Africa. And what I learned there was really transformative, and I will take it with me also in my next role. And I think I learned 3 things there. The first is to really sense and immerse, to really feel that you are walking there and that you're interconnected with all the people around you, all the animals around you, and just being there, walking on the earth, looking at the stars. You're part of a bigger whole. And that was one of the, kind of a key feelings that I take with me. The second is to envision a desirable future and to take responsibility. Like all the things that happen in nature have to do with respect. All the parts of nature, they interact with each other and they respect each other's role. So I think that is a very important thing to also extract further, that if we want to have policies for cities, that we listen to all voices, the voices of nature. It was already been said before this day, but also the voices of the next generation, but also the voices of the one that's not here today, like how we are sitting here. We're quite a privileged group.
So does this mean that on your board, as of Jan or further, you will invite to your board the voice of the next generation? Or
well, actually, in the
nature?
Amsterdam Economic Board, there is already a young board. So I think it is important to organize it. Not just say it, I'm going to listen. No, you have to organize it. So you were just asking the last panel about governance. And I think this is a very important one. Not just talk about it, but really organize it, that the young boards get a voice.
And how is it organized? Tell us more about it.
Well, it is organized that they have a real voice in the agenda setting. I think that's a very important part. And that the plans that are being taken further, they're part of it. So they're also responsible. And that also takes me to the third lesson. There in the wilderness, you are nothing without collective leadership. It's just you're nothing. Just as one person, you can do nothing. You will not survive. But sometimes we forget and we think we can do it on our own. But I think that is also the lesson from today, that real connection, to really make real connection with others. And you were asking about the key takeaways. Well, you can talk about content, but I think it is about key connections, to make new connections and make things happen.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. That a question that I have to Frida and to both Frida and Christoph has to do with your businesses. And we are in the middle of great transformations. And you and your companies too. You're both building a company. And what are the main challenges and obstacles you see? And how do you solve that? So maybe we start with you, Frida.
So hello, everyone. My name is Frida, and I'm a co-founder of a British B Corp brand called House of Hackney. Myself and my husband, we set it up in our house in Hackney about 12 years ago. We wanted to create a brand back then that served people and planet. So from very early on, the ideas of sustainability were baked into our foundation. Nature is our design muse, so we design and create products that are inspired by the natural world and bring the natural world into our home. So we felt we couldn't, just take this endless inspiration from nature without actually advocating for nature. So I would say it's been very much a rise in consciousness over those 12 years. As we've learned more, we've put more into practice. We were, quite early on, on paper, a very pioneering sustainability company. We very much, we protected ancient woodland with every order. But we realized quite early on, actually, just sustaining wasn't enough. And I remember around just after COVID or during lockdown, I picked up a book by E.F. Schumacher, a book called Small is Beautiful. And I started really learning about what was quite new to me, and this new economy called a regenerative economy. And it really spoke volumes to us. Just the idea of actually really using our businesses as a force for good. So we became students of regenerative economy, and we then introduced it into our company. We put our senior leadership team on a course of studying regenerative economy, and we've very much over the past 2 years been students of it, but we've been actively applying it. So it's changed everything. It's been very much, like we've basically pulled up the car bonnet of the business, and we've sort of really started looking at everything through this new lens. we've read sort of like so many books on the subjects, and there's some brilliant books.
But maybe it is helpful for the audience to know what do you sell? What do you sell? And when you say we implemented it in our practice, maybe you can give an example.
Yeah.
How you did that?
Yeah. Well, so we create home interiors products. So when we created the brand 12 years ago, the idea was, because we lived in London, we'd very little access to outdoor space, and we wanted to bring nature into our home in an urban setting. So we're very much we created these nature-inspired prints. Wallpaper is one of our biggest categories, and soft furnishings. So yeah, that's kind of the product. We've been on a big journey of actually looking at our with regards to our materials. This year, we've recently started using mycelium in our products. So that in itself is on our regenerative roadmap of looking at new materials. But in terms of sort of how we've applied or how we're starting to apply regenerative principles. And I think, the word regeneration is used a lot. I think before we regenerate, we need to learn to restore. But it has changed everything. We've sort of, we now see, well, a big part of it was we can't do this by ourselves. We have a team of about 50 people across our UK and US office. And we very much wanted to educate our team, and actually allow them be ambassadors of this movement, not just within our own company, but they could actually do it externally as well, because we kind of need everyone to use their circle of influence to inspire this very important movement. So little things like we started educating them, bringing in, experts on nature-based themes. We allowed them more time in nature. We put in a time in nature policy. We were actually one of the first.
What is it? Time to nature policy.
Yeah, well, we have a few things. We've been running a 4-day week for about the past 4 years. So we're very inspired by nature and how it actually organizes itself. Its living systems, working to our circadian rhythms, sort of, having permission to actually use them in our organization. So we have, for 5 months of the year, we run a 4-day week where people have Fridays off in nature. And then in the winter months, we run what's called winter hours. It's a 4:00 finish, so people can go home and bed in basically. We started looking at kind of corporate activism, using our creativity. We're quite a creative brand. Looking at how we can use our platforms to engage our audience with this. Yeah, regeneration.
Amazing.
And if I can pick it up there, if you don't mind, Frida, because you talk about nature and everything you do turns around nature, brings me basically to Christoph and about what your company does. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and the challenges that you have.
Thanks a lot, Leen. My name is Christoph, and I'm one of the co-founders and the chairman of South Pole. Actually, not the CEO, to be precise. So South Pole has about 1,000 employees, or 1,100 roughly, and the only goal of the company is the fight against climate change. And we do this in 2 main business lines. One is we help corporates on their sustainability journey. We help Nestle or L'Oreal to clean up their supply chains. We help them calculating climate risk. We do the strategies. We help them on switching towards 100% renewable, everything up to communications. And the other business line is helping financing projects that reduce emissions or avoid emissions or absorb emissions. This is where we are originally coming from. This was the first thing we set up. And these are projects, since you mentioned it, Paul, for example, in the methane sector. So we had a framework agreement in the early years of South Pole already on 20 million euro with the Austrian government. On behalf of the Austrian government, we helped setting up projects in Thailand in the starch industry, reducing methane, paid by the Austrian government. So this is what we're doing. And the challenges that we are facing are that we have to reshape a part of our industry. In the big scheme of things, the world needs about 600 billion to 1 trillion per annum from the private sector into these type of projects that avoid emissions or reduce emissions, mostly in developing countries, by 2030. So 600 billion to a trillion per annum by 2030. It's a huge amount of money. And well, a good part of the world believes that it needs market mechanisms to make these flows available. But there is another part of the world that believes market mechanisms are a bad thing. You should rather go through other mechanisms, just government-to-government money, donation.
So how do you do when they disagree? I mean, there are two worlds and two separate worlds that disagree. How do you manage?
Yeah, this is a similar question. How do you bring the Republicans and the Democrats together in the US? I mean, I guess we just have to accept the fact that these two worlds they do exist now. We see them in the media every day, and they will exist as well for the next 100 years. So they won't go away. That's not going to happen. But we're on the receiving end at the moment of media bashing the market mechanisms, and that's not a specific topic on South Pole, but one of the big clients of ours tells us, look, we are a category leader. That's why we are being pulled into this. South Pole is a category leader. That's why you're being pulled into this. So we are in this market mechanisms. And the problem is that in the early years, it was the UN as the authority. The UN basically set the goals and the rules in this CDM system. And then eventually when the market crashed after 2012, because there was no successor to the Kyoto Protocol, certain voluntary standards came up, and this worked well when the market was small. But then when they got the first attacks, let's say a year ago, they kind of collapsed more or less, or they didn't put their head up and said, look, I've been founded by the World Business Council or by the Climate Group and I stand for something. They didn't defend their own systems. Anyhow, so then the parties that used their mechanisms got attacked, and that's still the situation now. So basically, I'm saying we have to reshape the market now. That's a big challenge.
But we don't have time to wait for the rules to happen, to have everyone agree to the same rules.
Well, that's exactly the problem. We can't wait for another 20 years or so. And actually, it is known. Well,
Yes, tell us.
Look, I mean, it is known by the oil industry since 1971 that climate change is for real and so. And we have this IPCC report since 1990. Until 2018, the media made the world believe that climate change is still the debate is still on, because 3 scientists paid by the oil industry kept saying that there's still a scientific debate. For 28 years, media have blocked basically the fight against climate change. Until we had Greta coming on stage and there was something more interesting to talk about. Now this has its own problem. But anyhow, so at the moment at least, you have to be pretty hard-nosed in a certain way if you want to play in this field. And talking about going forward now, we see many compliance systems being set up in all kinds of developing countries, Thailand, India, Malaysia, and so on. They set their own rules, they set their own standards, and then you have a clear authority in the country. And there is a mix between the compliance market and the voluntary market. They converge basically locally. And this voluntary market, which you need as well on a global scale, at least in some sectors, has to be reshaped. For example, Bloomberg says it needs 130 billion per annum by 2030 just to avoid further deforestation. This money somehow has to flow. But we might have to rethink system, because you can always attack a project that protects the forest. If you have 100,000 people living in an area, like in our projects, like the one in Zimbabwe that's often mentioned, 300,000 people living there, of course you will find somebody who doesn't like the project. That's impossible. So we might have to think about completely different schemes like debt for nature swaps in countries, or protecting square kilometers instead of counting in tons.
They need to be inventive.
You have to
but are you positive about it?
Look, I mean, I think we're losing time. That's the problem. I mean, we should be working on all mechanisms in parallel in a positive mode. And for now, at least over the last years, I've heard many criticism on the market mechanisms. And it's easy to criticize them because everything is totally transparent. But I've never heard an alternative. I've missed the constructive element in it. So that makes me feel a bit bad that I see a lot of money not being available And it's not just on the upstream side, it's the projects that are being bashed, but downstream, it's all the corporates that make claims of whatever sort they're being bashed for making claims. So they rather they put their head down and they say, why should I invest actually in projects if I only get bad press?
I think we move now a little bit to the talent.
No, beyond talent, I think that we have a question. Please, yes, go ahead. I think it's important for us to welcome questions.
Hi, I'm Jan-Anne. I work for the Business University, and I think it's really important work you guys do. And recently, Follow the Money, a Dutch organization, had a critique on some of the projects, saying there were fictitious carbon credits. And I was wondering, how do you guys increase your transparency based on those findings? And what do you guys do to make them more credible so companies will invest into these important projects?
For example, I wrote a letter as the chairman of South Pole a week ago, actually about almost 2 weeks ago now, to Vera, to the Standard, asking them to make it very clear now what the status of these certificates is. Because it's very clear that all the certificates that have been issued according to the Standard are fully valid and they can never be revoked. And there is the very clear mechanisms, just the standards just put their head down and instead of defending their own systems. So that is the problem we're having. And as well, kind of the meta standard that is being set up now, which is called ICBCM, Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market. The very core of the standard is the definition of a carbon credit. And that definition is you set a baseline, what would happen without the project, and you compare it to your project. That's their definition that you can see under the core carbon principles on their website of that meta standard. So whenever an article says a project didn't live up to their promise, they should stand up and basically say a project doesn't promise anything. The way this carbon market works is you create a convention with a standard on how to calculate carbon, and then every year again you have to prove what's happening, and then you get the certificates. On hindsight, it's not the donation world where you promise to drill so many boreholes for water, and then you only drill half of them. You don't promise anything. You just create a very clear logic on how to calculate. You get carbon certificates against it, and that's on the upstream side. So
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I think it's about also, I think that everybody expects more transparency about what we do and how we do things. A question that I really want to ask you is that we are all here because we are part of this Be For Good Leaders movement. So it's all about leadership, right? As you rightly expressed so. I would like to ask you, what would be your advice to a leader or Be For Good leader, a leader starting this journey of being a force for good? What would your advice be as a leader?
Maybe we start with Jessica.
If I look at my own experience when I just started working a long time ago, then I wanted to change so many things. I saw so many things that we could do better, and I had all those propositions to do that. And then there was an old, wise colleague who told me, well, Jessica, this is not how it works here. So besides feeling really small at that time, I was really convinced that if one day I would be wise and old, I would never, ever say that to somebody who just joined an organization. Because I think what we do, if we lead and if we go on being in an organization, you get to know how things work, how we say in Dutch, how de hazen lopen. But then, I mean, it's handy. I mean, you can cope, you can make the situation less complex, but you will not change. If you don't listen to the voices that say, we can change, don't say, well, this is not how it works here.
This is
Stay open.
So helpful. Thank you so much, Jessica.
I think I heard quite an optimistic statistic earlier on, which was it only takes 15%. If we
10%, I checked it up.
And someone else said 3% earlier on, I think at country level. So, yeah, I think, to be able to mobilize that small percentage, we're all leading organizations that make an impact. So we have a duty. So, yeah, I think personally, I feel staying connected to nature is very important, both for myself, because we need to ensure that we're considering nature in our actions, and we really want to allow our team to experience that as well. And I think if they can if they're connected to nature, they can really consider nature in their decision making. And I think there was a book mentioned earlier on, Satish Kumar's Radical Love book. And I think for any leader to read that, I actually bought a copy for each person on my team. And it's a really beautiful reminder just to reconnect ourselves to our heart and to lead with heart. So, yeah.
Thank you.
And before we go to, thank you. Before we go to you, Christoph, about leadership, I would really like to check in if there is anything from the audience, because we have about 7 minutes to go on, and we need not to forget the audience. You check there?
Not yet, but I see that Pavel is online. Don't hesitate, my friend, to ask any question. We're here for you.
Is there anything from you that you want to join in the discussion? You want to make a remark? You want to be smart or not smart? It's also good. Not smart, yeah. Paul.
So, on not smart, just 1 minute. We all want to make an impact. We want to be good leaders, so we lead other people flying over the earth. What I would advise good leaders who are sitting here, we invested in a company called Goodwings. The gentleman is sitting over there, Christian Hull in Denmark, but just book with goodwings.com, so no longer with booking.com, but with goodwings.com, because they buy SAF at the moment that you book your flight or book your hotel your car, anything you book on bookings.com, because by doing it in that way, we as a group and the audience at home, you make an immediate impact in getting down. And it would be great if the B Corporation, the B for Good Leaders Corporation could register how many B for Good Leaders actually book with Goodwings and see the CO2 that we as a group can make, the CO2 coming down.
Yeah, I'm very happy, Paul, that you make that remark, because during our last summits, we calculated how all the people that came from all over the world, how much we saved. Isn't that right?
160 tons.
160 tons in Rome, or? In Rome, 160 tons. It sounds like a lot to me, but I don't know. Is that a lot?
Average European emits around 10 tons, depending on how you measure.
Yeah, it's more than nothing. So at least we calculated it, and we did moving in the right direction. So it's a great company, Goodwings. Thank you, Paul. Anybody else? I give you the mic. Your name, please. Yeah.
Hey everyone. So my name is Pim. I'm a CTO at VCO. I have to sit here. So my background is technology, and I was in a technology session today. And what I heard really struck me, and I want to take that to everybody. Technology sometimes is really seen as this big solution, and we're waiting for big solutions. We're waiting for some sort of a black box AI to tell us what to do, but we shouldn't, because we need to use the technologies that are out there right now, and therefore already make the decision. Because AI is not going to do it, because blockchain also didn't do it, right? So there's so many things that we kind of magicify as a technology, and I'm a technologist, right? I'm deep into all these kind of things, but we need to see it for what it is, and don't make it this magical thing, and make decisions on what is right now available, and take that into account, and don't wait for AI to solve your problem.
This morning, yeah, that is very good. This morning we saw, for all of you who are here, what AI could do, and Cornel, you saw the picture. We put some words in, and the AI, whatever that means, created an artist impression for all of us. Anybody else? I go there, and then Johannes. And I watch the time as well.
Hi, I'm Chris. One of the things that struck me today is also listening to the people that are not here today. And I have been speaking for the past 2 months to a lot of people on sustainability, but there is a very big group of people that say, hey, I have the feeling that I'm stuck in a system. It's the old system, and I want to move towards the new system, but I don't know how. And maybe it's also a question for Jessica, starting from January. What can we do to help these people? Because we have the leaders, but then we have also the people who are not the leaders but want to do good, but they don't know how, and they need to have the option to make the step.
this is so important what you say, but also what you did, talking to so many people, because I think that's where it starts. And then I just told you, if I look around, it looks like a very privileged group. So we can be a community, we can make impact, but maybe we also have the luxury to make impact. So what about all those people around us that can make impact but don't know how? They don't have the resources. So what we can do is connect them. And like what you are already doing, why not drink a cup of coffee with somebody you know who wants to do something but cannot or doesn't know how, who has the attention but doesn't know how to get the intention into action. So look around you, and if we really want to talk about diversity, I mean, the community is important, but also to look outside the community. So I would say, continue what you're doing, but let's do it all. See how many people we can reach, because the impact is not just in this group, but also outside. So thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Thank you. Johannes from Austria, founder of an impact bank there. We're starting with the impact bank. I think we have a common glue in this room and also in this movement, and this is the spirit. We want to do something good. But I'm so very happy that also another dimension was mentioned today, and I think it's the effort, it's the financial part of it. Because that's also a glue that's circulating within us and the B Corps especially. And I would have a question, and actually this question arose in the auditorium in the radical interdependence between small and big companies. I think it was very brilliant to see what the small companies do and the big companies do and how they could learn from each other. And I would have the question, would the B Corps be ready to take the money they have left over, they have earned, to invest in other small B Corps that would need the money? I think this is a central question we need to answer, because this could make this movement even more strong. We also heard 95% of the money in the world is a little bit ignorant. Only 5% is impact orientated. So I think it's time to get our own money moving in our right direction. So this question I would like to ask.
Maybe we can, also with the eye on the time, we can ask you as a B Corp to give a view on the question of Johannes.
I mean, I definitely think it's a very good idea, and I think we had a similar debate in Rome already. I think we even made a similar proposal to you, so I could totally subscribe to that.
Yeah, you made a proposal.
I made the same suggestion to the group when we were sitting in Rome.
And actually, I can answer that a little bit more maybe than you. We are going to announce several big things, several big funds at the upcoming summit that answer your question. And then we're talking about hundreds of millions of euros that we can bring to the companies, not only B Corps, the companies that want to move in the right direction. And that because we are aiming at people and not at companies. So that is, and if you permit me, Isabel, that brings us to the end of that I am going to close. Is that, or do you have something?
Yes, no, I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed co-hosting with you. And remember that listen to your inner voice whenever you take decision and step back and align heads and hearts in every step you take. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. And before we close, I have to share some of the next events with you that we have. We have a community platform that we launched today, this morning, to all of the people here at the University of Nyenrode, where you can go and you can chat and you can meet other people. And then we have the upcoming summit 2024, the 23rd and the 24th of 2024. And this morning I spoke to somebody who said, I would like to register. We have not started selling, but we have about 200 people who have already subscribed for the summit. It was sold out this year, so hurry up, I have to say, as a commercial remark. And I would like to show you a short video of the summit.
Our world needs radical solutions to build a better regenerative economy. The talking is over. We need action now from businesses embracing radical interdependence with an eye on future generations, while taking a stand for the common good and using finance as a catalyst to move to long-term shared value creation. Be for Good Leaders is building this international community of businesses. Over 1,500 business leaders from all over the globe will come together on our Summit of 2024 to take and define action, building a new regenerative economy. After successful summits in Rome and Amsterdam, we are on a roll with over 30,000 leaders in our community. Register now for the next summit on May the 23rd and 24th, 2024 in Amsterdam. Join us in defining the action the world needs.
So, we have come to the end of this 8 Leaders Dialogue. And I would like to thank, first of all, the table guests that we had. Veronique, Sean, Lisette, Frida, Eric, yes, Jessica, Isabel, and of course, Christoph. And especially I would like to also thank Nijero, the Business University, because they hosted us here today, a phenomenal partner that also is on their way to become a B Corp. And finally, I would like to thank all of you and the people that have been following us online. Hope to see you again 2 months from now in the next Leaders Dialogue. And for now, be inspired.